sorry, you talked yesterday about Audacity, and Audacity is just one of many tools that we can have students use, for example, to record their voice and play it again for another person to listen to. We can use voicemail in Skype. We can use many other programs. I think it was someone presented here, she's here, Jing, which allows screen capture and capture of voice as well, so that we can have interaction, but not necessarily in real time. And that's very important, of course, if we're having communication and interaction across different time zones. Negotiation of meaning as well is another important consideration for online language learning. And when communication breaks down, learners notice a gap between what they want to say, what they can't say, and that supposedly leads them to recognize what they do not know or are forgetting to know about the target language. And we often assume that when we set up communication, for example, online, an ideal situation would be to have our students communicating with native speakers. But actually, what some of the research shows is that for negotiation of meaning to occur, it's actually better for students to communicate with students who are also learning a second language. Because if they communicate with native speakers, what happens is that the native speaker, when communication breaks down, the native speaker can compensate and understands probably what it is they're trying to say. So they're not likely to intervene and say, could you repeat that? What did you mean? Whereas a non-native speaker will be likely to do that. So those are some principles that can inform our integration of technology in language learning. And when we're choosing sites, those are ones that we want to keep in mind. What I would like to do here now is kind of switch gears a little bit. And it's not only principles of language learning that we have to keep in mind when we're teaching. We have to keep in mind just general principles of good teaching in general. And so what I want to do in the next set of clips, which I've edited from video that I created, is show you some teachers from Newfoundland, high school teachers actually, talking about what these principles and what it means to be learner-centered while using technology in the classroom. The research that validated learner-centered principles were formulated as a result of an American Psychological Association task force on psychology in education in 1993. The task force wanted to create a framework that might guide school redesign and reform. 14 learner-centered principles are organized into 4 dimensions of factors: cognitive and metacognitive, motivational and affective, developmental and social, and finally, individual differences factors. According to cognitive and metacognitive factors, the learner constructs meaning and links new information with existing knowledge. The learner applies a repertoire of learning strategies, including higher-order strategies. The learner pursues personally relevant goals and is influenced by the context of learning.
We're all products of our time. You know, when I started teaching, my mentors, my models, could only deal with the tools they had at their disposal. And so they saw their responsibility as translate the content as directly as possible through a lecture or through note-taking or scripting or drawing into kids, to get it into kids' minds. And it was very much a transmissive model.
Technology is creating more of a shared learning situation, more of a participatory learning system, where I can still contribute the the old material, if you like, the poem or the novel or the story. And the kids are then able to bring me in the new technology. They know how to find it out there because they're out there all the time. And it gives them a sense of empowerment, I think, to say, I can do that, and they bring it in and share it. And it creates a heightened interest in the material, I think, when they have that kind of new spin on things.
As teachers, the students will walk through our doors eventually. And what allows them to carry on? And if you can allow them to have the skills to let them answer their own questions as they move on, I think that that's probably the greatest gift that you can give, because you're not always going to be there. And if you always relied on me giving the information, that's not going to cut it when they leave. And you really haven't given them something they can hang on to. And I think technology allows them that. When you give them the chance to explore and give them the skills to be able to use it properly.
Years ago, basically, if you wanted more information, the teacher was your only source. Besides an encyclopedia, that was it. Now, I'm just one of a myriad of sources that they can go to. And I guess it's a difference in perception of what the teacher is. The teacher becomes then more of a guider in the knowledge process. I'll do learning more than provide you with everything you need to know.
When it comes to talking about students, they're so involved in this internet world and they're so comfortable in it, and we come in as the teachers and this is not our nature, whereas they have grown up with it and they have an ownership there, almost a place in it. I think once you bring it to that level, then it really becomes a genuine experience for them, because they can relate to it not only in their school environment and their scholastic studies, but it becomes something that they can bring to their outside world. So, they may have a blog, but that may become something that lives outside of the classroom. And it's no longer for the sole purpose of evaluation and, I have to do my blog because the teacher's going to mark it. It takes on a life of its own, and they look forward to it and they enjoy it. It becomes an experience for them outside of academics.
It's my generation. I'm close to the end, and I'm not terribly computer friendly. So the students are kind of leading the way there. So I will introduce something, and then students will say, that's on YouTube, miss. And we'll all go to YouTube. I'll bring it in for you. Or that was there. I can download that from the internet for you, miss, and bring that in. And so there's a kind of reverse education happening here, where it's kind of a shared learning, if you like, where I bring up the material and they find the technology to bring it in and enhance it. And that quite often they're doing it. They're bringing it in for me, they're loading it up for me, and they're playing it for me, which kind of allows them to participate in learning more, I think, than meeting the sole deliverer of the learning.
If they're only doing the assignment to get the marks, they may do it, but the learning is very shallow and it's forgotten when they go through the doors. And I don't think that that's anything anyone wants. But if you're actually looking at that they view their learning as fun, which it can be if they're looking at pursuing something that they find really interesting, but also if they see it as being personally relevant to them, then, we know as teachers, that's the thing that will hold them. And I think that's the power that technology can allow us.
According to motivational and affective factors, motivation is influenced by emotional states and learners' beliefs about themselves as learners. Motivation is facilitated by meaningful and appropriate in difficulty, real-world tasks with choice and control. Learner effort and commitment are indicators of motivation.
Technology is coming out yearly, and they embrace it wholeheartedly. The more complex, the more challenging it is, they love it. And they can't wait to get the iPod phone. It can do 10 million things, and I can't wait to get it and figure out every single one of them. That's their attitude. And they, like I said, they will spend hours sitting down at whatever technology game or item of technology. They will spend hours and countless hours perfecting and playing. And it's one thing that they don't seem to have a tolerance level for it. They will just do it endlessly. And if you can somehow tie what you're teaching into this enthusiasm for technology, if you can find a way to meld the two, you will have their undivided attention. And for many of them, their undivided energy. It doesn't matter. They will work weekends, after schools, lunchtimes. It doesn't matter.
Something I think it's really important to remember to help capture students' interest and motivation. It relies on teachers looking at their own lives and how they learn and how they enjoy and what experiences online or what experiences in life that they enjoy the most. It's like when you were a child and when you were immersed in play, time disappeared. And you blinked and it was lunchtime. The experiences that as adults we have like that, what we should do as teachers, I think, is capture some of the elements of that really brought us to that place where time disappeared. If we can identify those things, although they're individual to us, and bring them to our teaching, whether it involves the web or some other technology or some other interactive event, then that's really one thing that will inspire kids or allow our teaching to begin to inspire kids.
I'm a French language teacher, and in my second language classrooms, one of the ideas that could be used to motivate students in a more sort of real-life context would be to tap into their love of using chat rooms and blogs and that type of thing by requiring them to respond to postings in French, obviously, in the target language, in a particular blog or chat room type of environment, letting them know that everybody's postings will be visible to everybody else, that they'll be visible to me, that they must be in the target language, and knowing that others are looking at this, perhaps they take a little bit more ownership and care in the use of the language.
These students are very comfortable as the digital natives in this area of Facebook and YouTube, and are very motivated to watch video, watch movies, talk to each other, communicate, albeit in a less conventional way than we would like them to, not using capitals, not using punctuation, using shorthand. And I think as immigrants to this new environment, we have to start changing the way we think, and we can sort of take what we've already been doing that is creative and that is higher order and bring it into this new environment. I think that the kids would be more motivated. And I think we have to accept that now. That is the way things are.
When you're using technology in any classroom setting, I think it's ideal to let the project, to let the assignment be as open-ended as possible. And by open-ended, I mean that you don't want to have, a fixed starting point, that it must be a 500-word essay, or it must be a pencil sketch, or it must be, we let it be a sketch. We'll let it be as open-ended as possible.
I find as soon as you tell students that there's a audience, their writing changes. And sometimes it becomes a little less open, because when they think that other people are going to read it, they become a little bit more protective of their ideas or what they want to say. But also, it helps them think that, okay, now I have a purpose for writing and I have an audience, so I have to be a little bit more clear. I have to be thinking a little bit more. I have to think out my ideas. I can't just slap it down. And they're so used to the teacher being their only audience that sometimes when you have a blog or you have even an internet audience or a cyber audience, we'll say, I think it does make a difference.
According to developmental and social factors, learning is most effective when developmental levels across intellectual, emotional, and physical domains, as well as social interactions, are taken into account, creating a positive climate for learning.
One of the ways that you can create that magic is providing opportunities for the students not only to pursue what interests them, which that can be done through technology, but I also think another important point is that they can collaborate with each other and then bring it back and present their ideas. I think that's the full picture.
I had an interesting experience recently with a calculus class that I teach. A student came to me and said that several of them had formed a group on Facebook to help support each other through an assignment. And he wanted to know, was that okay with me? And I thought, how cool is that? They're interested enough of course, it matters, right? The course matters to them because of the nature of the course. But in addition, they went out of the